Have you ever been sitting at like a really important business lunch, right? You're looking right at your client, and you confidently try to order a nice cold Pepsi,
Yeah.
but somehow, against your own will, it comes out of your mouth as Pepsi.
Oh, yeah. That is, it's a uniquely frustrating moment, honestly.
Right. Or, I mean, maybe you're presenting a project roadmap
Hmm.
and you want to tell your team where they need to, park an initiative, but what actually echoes in the conference room sounds exactly like a dog's bark.
Exactly, because you know exactly what word you want to say in your head. Like, you can literally see the letters spelled out in your mind's eye.
Yeah, exactly.
But the acoustic output that actually enters the room is just incorrect. And instantly you feel that, I mean, it's like a cognitive friction. You get that slight flush of embarrassment because you know the listener is suddenly focusing on your pronunciation instead of, well, your actual expertise.
That friction is exactly what we're dismantling today. So, welcome to the Clear English channel. This is a special edition of our deep dive where we analyze the specific hurdles that are, holding language learners back.
Right.
And today we're tackling the absolute biggest pronunciation barriers specifically for Arabic speakers who are trying to master English. We were hunting down that elusive P sound and the mechanics of that really tricky, sneaky C sound.
Yeah, before we really get into the anatomical mechanics of how to fix this, there is just a fundamental reassurance we really need to establish for everyone listening.
Which is what?
Well, mispronouncing these specific English words has absolutely nothing to do with your intelligence.
Oh, right, of course.
I mean, it is not a lack of vocabulary, right? It's not a failure to grasp the English language, and it is certainly not a reflection of your professional competence. It's entirely a matter of deeply ingrained biomechanics and physical muscle memory.
I think framing it as biomechanics is so important. It really changes the whole paradigm, right? It takes all the emotional weight out of the equation.
Exactly.
Because it's easy to get frustrated and think, like, why can't I just say this one simple syllable? But if we treat the mouth like a machine, we just need to, understand the underlying programming.
That's a perfect way to put it. We have to look at the software first.
Right, so let's start there. Before we can physically rewire the mouth, we need to understand that software. Why is the brain forcing the mouth to make these specific substitutions in the first place?
So, to understand the software, we have to look at how a human brain builds its phonetic library. Like, when you are a child acquiring your first language, your brain is it's highly neuroplastic.
Okay, so it's absorbing everything.
Right. It's actively listening to the environment and mapping out all the necessary acoustic signals. And, the Arabic alphabet is incredibly rich and complex. It utilizes muscles in the throat and the back of the mouth that, frankly, English speakers completely lack the ability to use.
Oh, absolutely. The guttural sounds.
Yeah, but here's the catch. The Arabic phonetic library simply does not contain the voiceless P sound or the C sound. They do not exist in the native acoustic database.
So the critical period of language acquisition closes, right? And the
Yeah.
brain basically finalizes its dictionary. But when you learn English as an adult and your brain encounters these missing sounds, what exactly is happening neurologically? I mean, does it just hit a processing error?
It's actually not an error at all. It's a substitution protocol.
The substitution protocol, okay.
Yeah, because the human brain is just this ultimate efficiency machine. It fundamentally dislikes the high cognitive load of processing completely foreign, unmapped inputs.
Right, it wants to take the easy route.
Exactly. So when it's faced with an English sound that doesn't exist in its Arabic library, it doesn't crash. Instead, it instantly looks for the closest available anatomical match. And it automatically substitutes the foreign sound with a familiar native sound.
Oh, wow.
So for P, the closest anatomical match is B, and for C, the closest match is sh.
Okay, wait. It's literally operating like the autocorrect algorithm on a smartphone.
That is exactly what it is.
Like, if I type a weird, obscure slang word into a text message, my operating system doesn't just leave it alone. The algorithm scans its internal dictionary, realizes the input string doesn't exist, and forcefully overrides my typing, right?
Yeah.
It replaces it with a completely different word that is, like, mathematically close and actually exists in its dictionary. And it does this in milliseconds, usually without me even realizing it until after I've hit send.
That analogy is neurologically accurate. Your brain is forcefully autocorrecting your motor pathways. When the auditory cortex and the speech centers receive that unknown foreign target, the P sound, for instance, the brain just overrides your conscious intention.
It just takes the wheel.
Literally, it outputs the closest known native motor plan, which is the B sound, And what's really fascinating here is that this mispronunciation isn't a failure of your brain. It's a symptom of your native language software being incredibly robust.
It's just too good at its job.
Right. It's hyper efficient at pattern matching. Your Arabic-trained brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do, streamline communication using the tools it already possesses.
So it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Exactly.
But it's a feature we really need to figure out how to manually override. Because while efficiency is great for the brain, the stakes for this specific autocorrect are quite high in professional and social environments. I mean, we are essentially dealing with semantic divergence.
Semantic divergence, yeah.
Where swapping one single sound completely changes the definition of the word you're trying to say.
Precisely. And now that we understand the neurological autocorrect mechanism, we need to look at the hardware of your mouth to actually bypass it. So let's start with the classic P versus B problem.
Let's do it.
In linguistics, we classify both of these sounds as bilabial plosives.
Okay, let me break that terminology down for a second. So bilabial means two lips. So both sounds require bringing the top and bottom lips completely together to stop the airflow, right? All right. And plosive implies, well, an explosion. The air builds up behind the lips and is then released. So if they are both bilabial plosives, what exactly is the brain confusing?
The divergence lies in a mechanical feature called voicing. Let's look at the letter B first, like in the words boy or bus. B is a voiced bilabial plosive.
Voice meaning?
Meaning that as you release the air, your vocal cords, which are located down in your larynx, are actively engaged and vibrating.
Wait, let me test that. So if I place my fingers flat against the front of my throat, right over the larynx, and I drag out a B sound. You feel it? Yeah, actually. There's a very distinct mechanical buzzing sensation against my fingers. It feels almost like a small motor running inside my windpipe.
That tactile buzzing is your vocal folds rapidly opening and closing. That is voicing. Now, because your vocal cords are engaged, they're actually restricting the flow of air coming up from your lungs.
Okay, that makes sense.
As a result, when your lips finally part to make the B sound, there is very little air pressure left to escape. It's a gentle release. And this exact mechanical combination voiced with low air pressure exists natively in Arabic as the letter ba.
Right, so your mouth is deeply comfortable executing this motor plan.
Exactly. It's home base.
Okay, so if B is voiced with low air pressure, I'm deducing that P, as in pen or park, must be the exact inverse.
You are absolutely right. The letter P is a voiceless bilabial plosive. Your vocal cords do not engage at all. They just remain completely open and relaxed.
So if I touch my throat again, right? P, 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 baya. P, P, pen, pa, P, P, park.
Oh, wow.
Nothing, right?
Yeah, my throat is completely still. There's zero vibration.
Exactly. But here is the critical mechanical consequence of that. Because your vocal cords are open and not restricting the air, all of that lung pressure rushes straight up into your mouth and gets trapped behind your closed lips.
Oh, so it builds up. Right. When you finally part your lips to say P, all that high-pressure air forcefully aspirates. It creates a sudden, explosive puff of air bursting out of your mouth. So it's voiceless, plus explosive air pressure.
And because that specific biomechanical combination does not exist in Arabic, your brain just substitutes it with the familiar B.
You got it.
Makes total sense. The brain says, I don't know how to build up high air pressure without vibrating the larynx, so I'll just vibrate the larynx and release low pressure instead.
Exactly. It's taking a shortcut.
So to force the brain to learn this new physical coordination, we need a way to, I guess, measure that invisible air pressure.
Which brings us to the paper trick.
Yes, the paper trick. It is the ultimate diagnostic tool for this substitution. Because you can't always rely on your own ears to tell if you made a P or a B.
Your ears trick you.
They do. So you need visual environmental feedback. So take a standard piece of paper, like printed paper, a receipt, anything lightweight.
Okay, I actually have my notes right here. I'm grabbing a page. Perfect. Hold it vertically by the bottom edge, about 2 inches directly in front of your lips. Now, say the word bear, like the large brown animal.
Okay, I'm holding a piece of paper in front of my face right now. I'll say bear. The paper? It didn't move at all. It just sat there.
Which is structurally correct. Because B is voiced, the air pressure is low, it doesn't have the kinetic energy to move the paper. But now, keeping the paper in the exact same spot, say the word pear, like the green fruit.
Okay.
Remember, it needs to be voiceless and explosive.
Pear. Oh, wow.
See?
The paper physically kicked back. I actually had to force a lot more air out of my lungs than I thought I would. Let me try that again. Pear. Yeah, that burst of air hits the paper like a miniature gust of wind.
That visible flutter is your confirmation. You generated the necessary intraoral pressure. If the paper moves, your P is correct. You have successfully overridden your brain's autocorrect.
That is so cool.
But as you just noticed, it feels really unnatural at first. You have to consciously overcompensate and force that air out because you're actively fighting decades of motor mapping.
The visual feedback is crucial, though, because if I'm trying to say pear, but the paper remains completely still, I immediately know the acoustic output was bare, regardless of what I intended.
Exactly.
And in a professional setting, relying on the listener to decode your intention based on context is a really dangerous game. I mean, we're dealing with high-friction miscommunications here.
Let's contextualize that friction. Imagine you're in a financial review meeting, right? And you are discussing pacing a project's budget. But your brain autocorrects to the voice plosive, and you talk about basing the budget.
Oh, no.
Right. The native English speakers in the room won't instantly realize you made a phonetic substitution. Their brains will literally try to process the word basing within the context of finance.
Which causes a split second of cognitive dissonance. The listener has to stop listening to your actual point to solve a linguistic puzzle. Like, did he mean baseline? Basic?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, the classic parking scenario. If you tell a colleague you need to park the car, you've completely derailed the semantic flow.
They're suddenly picturing a dog.
Exactly. And it chips away at the speaker's authority. Not because they aren't brilliant, but because the auditory signal is throwing errors.
Which is exactly why mastering that explosive air through the paper trick is so vital. And interestingly, once you understand the mechanics of building up and releasing air pressure, it translates perfectly into the second major pronunciation hurdle for Arabic speakers.
Which is the confusion between the she sound and the hesh sound.
Exactly.
And this one is incredibly deceptive. Because to an untrained ear, words like chair and share, or cheap and sheep, they sound almost acoustically identical.
They share similar auditory qualities, definitely, but anatomically, inside the mouth, they are completely different classifications of sound.
Okay, how so?
It all comes down to the management of airflow. It's continuous friction versus sudden affrication. So let's analyze the she sound first. Words like sheep, shoe, share. In linguistics, she is classified as a fricative.
Fricative, meaning it relies on friction. So the air is being pushed through a narrow channel in the mouth. But it's never completely stopped. It's a continuous, smooth flow of air.
Precisely. As long as you have breath in your lungs, you can sustain an ish sound.
Shh. Right, like a librarian telling people to be quiet.
Perfect analogy. Your tongue arches up toward the roof of your mouth, leaving just enough space for the air to hiss through. Now, the Arabic language possesses this exact sound with the letter sheen. Therefore, your brain heavily favors the shish sound. It is a highly mapped, very comfortable, continuous motor plan.
But then we encounter the C sound. Words like cheap, choose, chair. If she has this fricative, what is she? Because it doesn't feel like a smooth flow of air at all.
It isn't. The C sound is classified as an affricate. And the secret to an affricate, which frankly many native English speakers don't even consciously realize, is that it's actually two completely different consonant sounds fused together.
Wait, really? Two sounds?
Yes. It begins with a hard stop and resolves into a friction release. Specifically, the C sound contains a hidden T sound at the very beginning.
Wait, let me process the mechanics of that. You're saying C is technically a combination of a T and an SH. So T plus H equals CH.
Yes. Think about it. When you initiate a T sound, the tip of your tongue physically strikes the alveolar ridge.
The alveolar ridge, that's the hard bump on the roof of your mouth right behind your top teeth.
Exactly. That physical contact completely blocks the airflow from your lungs for a fraction of a second, which builds up pressure.
And then instead of just dropping the tongue to release the T, you release that built-up air pressure directly into the narrow channel of the shoe shape.
Exactly. You block the air with T and explosively release it into shh. Let's try it slowly. T-ish.
Okay, let me try. T-ish.
T.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Ish. Oh, wow. That is genuinely remarkable.
It works, doesn't it?
It really does. If I compress those two movements and execute them rapidly, the sudden explosive release of the T block creates that sharp biting edge of the C sound.
And that sharp, biting edge is exactly what distinguishes chair from share. But here's the thing. While understanding the hidden T is structurally accurate, trying to consciously calculate T plus esh while speaking conversationally is just too much cognitive load.
Oh, for sure. You can't be doing linguistic algebra in the middle of the sentence.
Right.
So if ish is just a sustained hiss-like, telling someone to be quiet in a library, what is the physical hack to reliably produce The explosive six.
The physical hack is the sneeze.
The sneeze.
I want you to imagine the biological mechanics of a sneeze. Achoo?
Achoo. Okay, it's incredibly violent and sudden.
Exactly, because a sneeze is biologically an affricate. You cannot slowly, smoothly, or continuously sneeze.
That's true, you really can't.
The body blocks the airway, builds immense pressure, and forcefully expels it in a fraction of a second. Achoo perfectly mimics the explosive, pressure-released start of the C sound.
That makes a lot of sense.
So when you look at a word like chair, do not map it to the smooth, continuous flow of the sheen. Map it to the biological mechanism of a sneeze. Sharp, quick, forceful affrication.
That is a brilliant heuristic. You contrast the continuous hiss with the explosive sneeze. And just like with P and B, failing to make this mechanical distinction leads to severe semantic divergence in the real world.
It certainly does. Imagine you're a procurement manager negotiating a vendor contract, and you want to ask the vendor if they can offer a less expensive option.
Okay, so applying the sneeze mechanic. Short, blocked air, explosive release. I want to ask for a cheap price. Cheap? The tongue hits the roof of the mouth and snaps away.
Perfect. But if your brain avoids the unfamiliar affricate and autocorrects back to the comfortable, continuous native fricative, you will ask the vendor for a cheap price.
Which instantly undermines the gravity of a corporate negotiation. You've introduced a farm animal into a pricing discussion.
Right.
Or consider giving someone options, like you need to choose a strategy. But with a continuous airflow, it becomes you need to choose a strategy. The listener is left wondering why footwear is suddenly relevant to the Q3 deliverables.
And these micro moments of confusion, they accumulate. They really chip away at a language learner's confidence, making them hesitant to speak up in meetings or contribute to complex discussions. And it's all because of a biomechanical mismatch in their phonetic library.
Okay, so we have deeply analyzed the theory here. We understand that the brain is automatically substituting phonemes based on its childhood programming.
Yes.
We know that the difference between P and B is a matter of vocal fold vibration and intraoral pressure, which we can test with a paper trick. And we know that CH requires a hard block of air like a sneeze, unlike the continuous flow of shush.
Exactly.
But theory alone doesn't rewrite neural pathways. How does the listener actually take these mechanical hacks and make them permanent unconscious habits? Because no one is going to hold a piece of printer paper to their face during a PowerPoint presentation.
No, you certainly cannot rely on the diagnostic tools forever. And this brings us to the most vital paradigm shift of this entire deep dive.
Lay it on us.
You have to stop viewing language purely as an intellectual exercise of vocabulary and grammar. You must start viewing your mouth as a highly complex biomechanical system of muscles.
Muscles, okay.
Yes, the orbicularis oris around your lips, the intricate muscles of the tongue, the soft palate, the diaphragm, they are all physical muscles that require conditioning.
So just understanding the linguistics doesn't grant me the ability to automatically execute the sounds.
Not at all. It is identical to athletic training. Like, you could read a physics textbook on the exact trajectory and kinetic chain required to serve a tennis ball, right?
Sure.
You could understand the theory perfectly, but if you walk onto a tennis court without ever having actually swung a racket, your muscles will default to whatever clumsy, untrained movement they already know.
That's a great point.
To build a proper tennis serve, you have to swing the racket thousands of times to build the myelin sheath in your brain, the literal physical structures that create muscle memory. Language requires the exact same physiological process.
Wow, okay.
Right now, your Arabic motor patterns are heavily myelinated. They are the default path of least resistance. To build an English motor pattern, you need deliberate, repetitive practice.
I see. So the paper trick and the sneeze trick aren't just parlor tricks. They're the equivalent of lifting weights with perfect form. They are the gym equipment for your mouth muscles.
Precisely. They are tools to guarantee that when you do your repetitions, you are actually building the new neural pathway rather than just reinforcing the old error.
That makes total sense.
If you dedicate just 5 minutes a day to deliberate practice, holding the paper, forcing the voiceless aspiration of the P, feeling the hard alveolar block of the cheat, you are literally forcing your brain to map new motor coordinates.
And over time.
Over time, as that pathway strengthens, the brain realizes it no longer needs to use the autocorrect protocol. It adds the true P and C sounds to its internal dictionary, and the execution moves from conscious effort to unconscious competence.
That is an incredibly empowering perspective. It completely removes the mystery and honestly the self-doubt from language learning.
Right.
When you stumble over a word, it is not a lack of talent. It is simply a lack of repetitions in the mouth gym.
Exactly.
You are in total control of conditioning your own muscles. Put in the reps, and your English pronunciation will systematically, predictably become clearer and more authoritative.
It completely replaces frustration with an actionable mechanical protocol.
Speaking of actionable protocols, that brings us to the end of our deep dive today, but we are absolutely not letting you leave without a directive.
Oh, no.
We are issuing a call to action right now. As soon as this audio finishes, I want you to grab a piece of paper, stand in front of a mirror, and actively practice your voiceless bilabial plosives. Run through your P's and V's, watch the paper flutter, feel the burst of air, do your reps.
Yes. Do your reps.
And while you're at it, please remember to subscribe to the Clear English channel. Let us know down in the comments. Which specific English word is the absolute hardest for you to physically pronounce? We analyze all of them, and it might just be the focal point of our next deep dive.
And before you go, I want to leave you with one final physiological concept to ponder.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we have spent this entire session discussing how your brain actively autocorrects the motor pathways of the sounds you speak, right? Without your conscious awareness.
Right.
But the brain's efficiency algorithms apply to sensory input as well, through a phenomenon known as categorical perception.
Categorical perception. How does that alter our listening?
It means your brain filters incoming acoustic data through the exact same phonetic library. If your brain is actively filtering your speech to avoid the P sound, there is a very high probability it is silently autocorrecting the audio when you listen to native speakers.
Wait, really?
Yes. When a native speaker aspirates a P, your auditory cortex might actually be stripping away that explosive air in real time, categorizing the sound as a B in your brain before you even consciously process the word.
Oh my gosh.
Which raises a really fascinating question. How much of the English language are you actually mishearing on a daily basis, trapped in an auditory illusion built by your own brain?
That is a staggering thought. I mean, if our brains are altering the audio before it even reaches our conscious mind, are we even hearing the same language?
Exactly.
Next time someone asks if you want a Pepsi, pay clinical attention to the actual acoustic burst of air that hits your ear. Thank you for joining us, and good luck at the mouth gym, everyone.